Welcome again for this first webinar of 2025 year. I have the pleasure today to have here four speakers for our webinar on policy framework for industrial symbiosis, navigating regulation and incentive. As you know, this session as always is recording, and later on we will upload in our YouTube channel, and also we will distribute with the slide also in our social media. And today, as a speaker, we have Peter Chrabak, Biljana Cincurak, James Woodcock, and Natalija Cudecka-Purina. Just to make an overview of the session, we will give them the floor, first of all, for making their presentation. Here are the title: Toward a National Circular Economy Strategy for Hungary, Industrial Symbiosis as part of European Environmental Protection and Waste Management Policy, Risers, End of Waste and Effect of Industrial Symbiosis. And the last but not least is practical barriers for industrial symbiosis in the regulation for state-owned and private entities. After that, you will have you could have the option and the opportunity to make them any question from their presentation or from any of the topic that they were speaking for. You could do in the question box, but anyway, in case that you want to speak and make your question by speaking, just allow me the right to speak and I will unmute yourself. So before starting, I would like to give you a short introduction of the speaker of today. The first one will be Peter Chrabak. He is from Hungary. He works in Bay Sultan and he is Circular Economy Research Group leader. He has more than 20 years of experience in earth science and material processing industry. And also he is expert from the Hungarian Chamber of Engineering as a waste management. And in general, his work and his know-how is related to circular economy, environmental sustainability, and another kind of topic such as industrial symbiosis. The second speaker today is Biljana Cincurak. She is associate professor at the University of Osijek in Croatia. She is chair of Commercial, Financial, Maritime, and General Transport Law. She teaches in the university, but apart from that, she's also Green Legal Clinic and participates in different actions related to law. She's a part in supporting some of the journal of the university that's a paragraph, and also she published in several scientific papers. The third one is James Woodcock. He's Senior Project Manager at the International Synergies Limited organization. He has extensive experience in environmental, industrial knowledge, etc. He is supporting industrial symbiosis program, especially the UK one, to try to implement industrial symbiosis. And also he has making several training about industrial symbiosis to different audiences as part of his work. And the last but not least will be Natalija Cudecka-Purina. She's associate professor in the LIAISE School of Business and Finance. She has 20 years of experience also in sustainability, circular economy, and industrial symbiosis. And also she works in several projects like LIFE projects, Erasmus projects, and another kind of project that wants or has the objective of trying to support these circular and green topics such as industrial symbiosis. So basically, that are the four presentation and speaker of today, presenter of today. But I don't want to keep more the floors, and I will give the floor to Peter for the first presentation toward a national circular economy strategy for Hungary, SRSP project. So Peter, the floor is yours. I think you could share your screen.
Okay, I try to share my screen then. Welcome everyone. Thank you, Almudena, for this introduction. I just kindly inquire, I ask your confirmation whether I have almost 10 minutes, yes?
Yeah, more or less 10 minutes.
Please. Okay. Thank you very much. I try to be very concise. However, it's we all know it's a quite huge topic to discuss, and yeah, it even worth a lot of hours even days and weeks to discuss. So just a second. Please give me a okay if you see my screen. Big red LIAISE.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Let's do it again. Share screen 2. Share.
Now,
And what about now? Oh, perfect. Okay, great. Thank you very much. So what I would like to talk about is this project was aimed to establish a background for the development of the Hungarian national circular economy strategy. Why is it this structural reform? The name of the project is related to the structural reform supplement project, which was also targeted for other European countries, and all other countries, several other countries has already had this background study for their national circular economy strategy. Why circular economy? All we know that industrial symbiosis is key to circular economy. However, the focus was on circular economy in general, but as we will see, there are identified points which we could say that this refers or relates to the industrial symbiosis as well. The overall project was began in the end of 2019. And the DG reform and OECD started its work overall in 2021, where our company stepped in this process. In the first steps of the project, they identified the 3 critical sectors in the Hungarian landscape where they waste manage 3 main, let's say, material flow, which has high potential regarding the circular economy. And once they identify these 3 main material flows, what we'll discuss in more little more details, they asked external experts to make more concise and more analyze these sectors in Hungary. Why us? Because we are also in Hungary, we are acting in Hungarian, we well know the Hungarian market and the legal framework and landscape as well, and also the players. That's why our knowledge on the Hungarian market and material flows and the stakeholders was a big point on that. So what the main task was, and also our partner was Trinomics, which is a Dutch company who participated, and the main task was to assess the state of play of circular economic policies and development. So let's see where we are now at the time of this study development, and also identify and make aggregates and assessment of the quantities and qualities of these material flows, and also take into consideration the life cycle approach, so including all of the life cycle stages into this process, and give as detailed analysis on them as we can provide. And also, once we have this, let's say, overview, a detailed overview, then we will have the opportunity to identify the key cross-cutting tools, what are missing from the system, where the points that we can give suggestions to improve the overall system overall to finally reach very efficient circular economy in Hungary. So what for this work, there were also some identified proposed overall targets, which was defined by OECD for 2024. Of course, these targets were developed commonly with the Hungarian government and concerned ministries and departments. So you can see here first main step is the limitation of the quantity of the materials of use. You know, we all know that the best waste which is not generated. So that's why if we limit the quantity of the materials we use, the less waste we can expect at the end of the life cycle. Also, we can avoid waste generation if we improve the circulation of the materials in the economy. On one hand, we have got less waste. On the other hand, we have got useful, precious inputs for the value creation, for the production. And we also spare natural resources with this. And also, together with these aspires, we can generate new business models and generate economic value through these material flows. So, and what was these three main identified areas? First was biomass and food. The second is the construction, and the third is the material stream of plastics. So overall, at the end of this work, 45 policy recommendations and proposals were identified and phrased. They aim to reduce the use of substances and related external environmental impact. So they target we identify several possibilities through the total, let's say, life cycle, all life cycle stages, and also externalities were identified, like create local green jobs and overall reduce the economy, Hungarian dependence of economy on imports. So let's see these sectors one by one. There were three deadlines for where these targets could be set. One for 2024, 2028, and the final for 2040. You see in the first section, which is a short deadline, there are the low-hanging fruits, which we can say, which is easy to install in such a system. But we also take care that not only those direct low-hanging fruits we should list, but also identify other opportunities which leads positive results on long term. For example, strengthening the education, information, and training tools. It may seem that it was quite far away when we done this work in 2020, end of 2022. However, I can say that this is a long process, so not just only slight moving forward, slow shifting was made since that time. So these impacts and identified steps are still valid. For midterm, you can see there are identified and dedicated bioeconomy research, development, and innovation program, which could lead on good results on a longer term. Also, there are some financial burdens to avoid landfilling and to motivate on a higher level of recycling and recovery, especially consideration of household waste, and also the bio-waste processing and recycling facilities should be supported by financial measures. On the long term, policy support is a must, we can say, and of course, use of green public procurement criteria. It could also be formed as a longer, short or medium term aim. However, this could be developed over time and also set to the current environment and situation. So finally, a redefined policy approach for bio-based energy production should also be welcome. What refers to the construction, construction waste is in Hungary's portfolio of the waste. The construction demolition waste means almost 1/3 of the overall Hungarian generated waste annually. And also you can see that on short term, we give priority to circular design guidelines and also simplified procedure for the use of secondary raw materials, because in Hungary nowadays we have got quite a huge and problematic legal administrative issues and burdens to make this thing practically forward. However, technically, physically, it would be implemented easily. Also, renovation support schemes in a midterm and selective demolition program should be welcome. And as you see, we are talking about fully the recovering of waste. And if we consider industrial symbiosis, it's almost not always about recovering the waste and use by other players. However, there are several points which could be identified as industrial symbiosis. The overall aim, if we see that if we suggest, for example, a more stringent landfill tax on medium term, this also tries to motivate the players to find those interactions, the cooperation where they could use further sources for their materials, and also, for example, not only for materials, but also for services as well. Overall, lead us to a more efficient operation, even on not only material flow, considering material flow, but also energy usage as well. And finally, leads us to a decreased environmental emission. And also quality standards and quality label for the construction sector is of high importance as well, and which we make it on a larger scale dimension. Urban planning strategies also should
Peter,
yes.
1 minute more, please.
Thank you very much, Almudena, for your note. I try to make it faster. We have got the third area. This is the plastics. Plastics currently account for the quarter of all packaging materials used in the country. However, only about 1/3 of them is recycled. Last year in Hungary, the DRS system, the deposit return system, was installed and implemented. The first results over this more than half year operation is quite good. So the 33% recycle recollection rate was now increased, seems to be 90%. So it's really impressive, and it's very good. However, people don't like so much, I think, RDS system because it's quite problematic. Anyway, okay, now we are here, and on medium term, we suggested to tax on primary plastic packaging, also promote design for recyclability. Of course, these are not new. Most of these suggestions are underpinned and backed by European directives and other policy initiatives. So on the end of the day, finally, these should lead to one common goal, to a more increased and enhanced material usage. And the long-term extended producer responsibility for separate correction of plastics in so it's a mistake, but it also refers not only to the construction demolition waste, but for plastics as well. And also green public procurement also is a good tool here to increase this performance and strengthening of landfill tax and the enforcement of waste legislation. So overall, you can find the full report on the link below, and a short summary of the main findings is also available on the other link above. So thank you for your attention, and yeah, I'm open for your questions.
Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for your interesting presentation. Let's wait for the end for the questions. So let's move for the second presentation. The second one will be done by Biljana, and she will present industrial symbiosis as a part of the European environmental protection and waste management policy. So, Peter, if you could stop sharing.
Yes, I'm about. It's struggling like a boomer. Just a minute. Shall I stop? Oh, no, not yet. Okay.
Now, yes. Thank you so much. So, Biljana, I think now you could go.
Thank you.
just a second. But, well, I cannot put my presentation, and I can't share with you. I don't know why.
It's a stream because you have the power to do.
I mean, it only gives me that Google cards to share, not the presentation.
Okay, no worry. What I could do is I will share and you
Yeah, you
could
can share. You
tell
have the
me
presentation.
when I have to change this.
Yeah.
Let me 1 second.
So thank you, Modena, for the invitation. Hello, everyone. So, I mean, we can start.
Yeah, I think now you will see that. So yes, please.
Yeah. So, okay, I have this boring part of the presentation regarding the legal regulation. So, can I get the first slide? Thank you. As we all know, basically the development of legal rules related to environmental protection began relatively late, around 1970s, and it is usually associated with the United Nations Conference on the Human Environment from 1972, which played an important role in the development of international environmental law and stimulating its systematic development. After that, we had another conference in Rio in 2092 and in Johannesburg in 2002. So from 1970s till today, we have a large number of international agreements regulating different sources of pollution in different area that needs to be protected. But unfortunately, when we are talking about international legal framework, the main problem here is the application of international agreements. At the European Union level, we can find different provisions regarding environment in, of course, European treaties. For example, the Treaty of Lisbon of 2007 made climate change and sustainable development a priority of the European Union. Then again, we have different programs, plans, directions, regulations, and policy. Of course, the most important is the European Green Deal, and after that, European climate law. So before the European climate law, climate neutrality was only a political guideline, and by that European climate law, it is established as a mandatory European Union goal. Next slide, please. As we all know, the industrial symbiosis is basically connected to waste. So the main presentation will be regarding the waste and waste management policy. So the amount of waste and its inadequate disposal are a global problem. And we must stress that waste is not a garbage, and it can be a valuable material for further production, which achieves also environmental protection. So the proper waste management is key to protecting living beings, health, and the environment. Therefore, the aim of the European waste policy is to protect the environment and to reduce waste. And as a tool here, there are circular economy and industrial symbiosis. Next slide, please. Circular economy is, of course, based on the idea that the value of materials is maintained in the economy for as long as possible, and it reduces the production of waste to a minimum. As a tool to achieve a more circular economy, we have industrial symbiosis. So the circular economy is a broader concept that includes sustainable practices for all materials and products, and industrial symbiosis, from the other hand, targets industrial waste and byproducts. So both focus on sustainability, but are insufficiently used in practice. Next slide. So when we are talking about the legislation, I mean, the concept of industrial symbiosis is not new. I mean, the most famous example of industrial symbiosis from Kaldenberg dates back to 1961, but it is still insufficiently analyzed in literature, especially in legal literature. The industrial symbiosis legal regulation is not separated into specific regulations, and it is rarely mentioned directly in the regulation. Today, we have about 50 documents in the European Union related to industrial symbiosis. So it is basically incorporated in the EU regulations on circular economy, resource management, sustainable development, waste management, and in general, environmental protection. Legal regulation can be a driver, but also a barrier for industrial symbiosis. Regulatory barriers refer to conflicting regulations, legal gaps, restrictive or unclear legislation, difficulties with obtaining different approvals, waste definitions, and so on. We will hear later some practical problems regarding the barriers and legislative barriers. So can I get another slide, please? I have singled out for today's presentation several legal acts regarding industrial symbiosis, two communications, and of course, Waste Framework Directive. Next slide, please, Almudena.
This one, or?
Yeah. New industrial strategy for Europe communication. It does not directly mention industrial symbiosis, but we can conclude from some sentences. For example, industry will need a secure supply of clean and affordable energy and raw material, or all carriers of energy need to be used more effectively, by linking different sectors, that it is related to industrial symbiosis. But from the other hand, a new circular economy action plan of 2020 mentions the industrial symbiosis directly. It says that the Commission will enable greater circularity in industry by facilitating industrial symbiosis, by developing an industry-led reporting and certification system, and enabling the implementation of industrial symbiosis. Unfortunately, the action plans are not legally binding, and today there is no initiative to adopt a framework directive on the circular economy. Next slide, please. As I said in the beginning, industrial symbiosis is in fact related to waste management and waste policy. So that waste management policy was initially fragmentary and completely ineffective, and it began. I mean, the first directives were adopted in 1975. Today, we can divide them in 4 groups. First is, of course, Waste Framework Directive. And then we have 3 different groups. First one regarding special types of waste, then related to shipment of waste, and directives related to buildings and disposal of waste. as you can see, it is a complex regulation, and we have a large number of the directives, since each type of waste requires specific regulation and treatment. Next slide, please. And finally, so we came to Waste Framework Directive. So it is probably the one and most important binding regulation. It sets the basic concepts and definition related to waste management. It explains and gives definitions of waste, waste byproducts. It sets out the waste hierarchy. As a part of circular economy package, this Waste Framework Directive from 2015 was amended in 2018. And here again, in the preamble, we have directly mentioned the industrial symbiosis. So it says that the Commission should be empowered to adopt implementing acts to establish detailed criteria for byproduct status, prioritizing replicable industrial symbiosis practices. But of course, we have great problems with the implementation of this directive in the member states. So the directive is binding on member states as to the results to be achieved, but leaves them to choose the methods by which they will achieve the objectives. So transposition in national law and the implementation differ between member states. And here we also have a large number of infringements to member states. Next slide, please. And in the end, we can conclude that waste management was previously aimed at protecting health and the environment from the impact of littering. And today, it is focused on the resource value of waste. Unfortunately, we have poor waste management, so we need to develop waste management measures for proper treatment and disposal of waste. So as we see, there is a large number of directives regarding the waste. So its implementation is very complex and different, and in fact, pretty complicated for the member states. Unfortunately, circular economy and the industrial symbiosis are not used enough in practice, and the regulation do not regulate them enough. So we need to develop first national industry symbiosis strategies, as well as a special legislation for industrial symbiosis at national and European level. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Biljana, for your presentation. We will have time later for the questions. So I would like to give the floor to James for his presentation about research. I think you are already sharing the screen.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
So the floor is yours.
Excellent. Right. Good morning. So I'm going to present on the project RISES, and we're looking at what that's about and specifically what we're doing with end of waste and its effect on industrial symbiosis. So RISES is a project that is seeking to build a roadmap integrating practice, policy and research and innovation to promote the standardization of industrial symbiosis. So it's a roadmap for producing a standard. It's not actually producing the standard itself. And so you can see here the different things that we're going to be doing. There's industry involved, there's research and innovation involved. We're looking at policies, and we're looking at standardization bodies and the type of standards that would be produced as well. We've seen this already. So the Waste Framework Directive came up with various different bits and pieces, It was amended, as again previously mentioned, it was amended in 2018 to call for the Commission to empower the adoption implementing acts to order and establish detailed criteria with prioritising the replicable practices of industrial symbiosis. So we've got the Commission saying, look, in the Waste Framework Directive, we want to be able to promote industrial symbiosis. But there is an issue, and the issue is Article 5 and Article 6. So Article 5 of the Waste Framework Directive defines byproducts, and Article 6 defines end of waste. And we'll look at both of those because the process of producing end of waste criteria is quite complicated and quite limited actually in how it has been actually produced on a EU-wide scale. Member states are doing their own thing, but that is not helping Europe as a whole because member states are able to say, well, look, that's happening in that state, but we don't recognise it in our state. So if we look at byproducts and we look at end of waste criteria, there's some interesting things there. So the first thing is a byproduct is produced as an integral part of the production process. But the key thing here is that it can be used directly without any further processing. If you need to process it, it's not a byproduct, and therefore it gets kicked into being a waste and requires end of waste criteria. Otherwise, the person using it needs a waste management license. For just staying at byproduct again, further use must be certain and it has to be lawful. So that's protecting the environment and health and things like that. So that's obvious. If we then look at end of waste criteria, it can have undergone a recovery and that can include recycling. But it's got to comply with specific criteria. But end of waste, certainly on the EU level, doesn't specify the criteria that needs to be met. It specifies that it has to meet whatever criteria is available at the time. It can be commonly used for a specific purpose, and there has to be demonstration that a market demand exists. And then again, the final point is that the use has to be lawful and it has to meet legislation and protect environment and human health. So the key criteria of whether it can be a byproduct or whether it requires end of waste is does it require further processing? If it requires further processing, then we're into end of waste. If it doesn't, then we're into byproduct. And then if we look into end of waste, because that's the key thing really that we're going to concentrate on for the rest of this. So if we start there and sort of like coming through here, so this is from various end of waste technical proposal documents and those are documents that look at a resource and say a waste and say, what do we need to do? How could we get this to be end of waste? So the general principle is that the waste ceases to be a waste when it's useful and safe product. And then the framework is that it can be commonly used. There is a demand. It meets the technical requirements and legislation and standards, and there is no adverse effect, as mentioned before. And then you tend to, in an end of waste document, get these criteria. So what it is, the input material, what are the control procedures, how are you going to measure, and quite a bit is spent on how you actually measure that you meet the quality standards rather than what the quality standards actually are, how you're going to provide that information, and what are the processes and techniques that can be used to actually treat the waste and transform it from a waste into a product or something, an input resource. Now, we had 3 of these produced in around 2010 to 2013. And then everything went quiet. And then in 2022, there was another review. And that produced a list, a quite long list of potentials. And from that, a short list was developed. It was a fairly extensive assessment. And these are just some of the things that actually it looked at. So it went really deep into looking at the various different wastes that it looked into. And from that, 5 were chosen as the top 5 that really should be concentrated on. So plastics in various formats, textiles in various formats, rubber, mineral fractions from construction and demolition, both aggregates and mineral wool, and then paper and cardboard. And paper and cardboard had been looked at in the past, but people weren't too keen on actually doing an end of waste of paper and cardboard, but again, it turned up as something requiring it. So that's where the European one is at the minute, and they are currently looking at plastics, textiles, and construction and demolition waste, and those are being produced. But after those three have been produced, that's it again. No more. There is no plan going forward at the minute to produce any more European-wide end of waste. So we're going to have 6 European-wide end of waste documents. And then that's it. So we're back to member states producing their own. So here's an example from Ireland of pulverized fuel ash. Slightly different tack to what you see on a European wide. So here we have specific EWC codes that are listed. So we're going to attack these particular European waste catalogue codes. It talks about the treatment process, and it does go into detail on quality. It actually gives you specific standards that must be met. Together with other things such as REACH and persistent organic pollutants. It also talks about compliance. How will you prove what you're doing? And then it talks about the use that you can actually use this for once it's gone through and is no longer classified as a waste. So again, sticking with PFA. So this is an example showing you exactly what the material is and what are the product standards that it must meet. So it's much more in depth than a European-wide one because it is specifically mentioning standards that must be met, whereas the European-wide ones don't mention standards in that manner. It says you must meet the standards that are prevalent at the time. So with all of this, as a project, Risers, we met with the JRC to talk things through, talk about their technical proposals, talked about what's coming on with end of waste and how the standards meet. And what they came through with was that the link to standards between end of waste documents and standards is quite weak. And the reason is that the Commission was reluctant to quote specific standards because standards change over time. And that meant that they would have to go back to the end of waste document and update it each time that these standards change. So if we actually look through end of waste as a whole, there's various different levels of end of waste documents that you can have. You can have case by case, which is a specific resource in a specific instance. So, and there's various examples of that throughout Europe. You can have the national level ones, such as the PFA example I've just given you. And that's where a country develops its own end of waste. They are similar to EU, but they're country specific, and they might go into more depth than the EU ones do. And then you've got the actual EU one, the ones that exist, of which there are currently 3. There will be 6. And the future is so plastics was supposed to come out last November. I think it's there or thereabout. Then there's textiles, and then there's construction and demolition. But once they're done, that's it. At the minute, there are no known plans by JRC that the EC are looking at to review or produce any more end of waste again. So we're probably going to go into hiatus for another few years. Now, if we think about standards, companies can't develop a standard and declare a waste is no longer a waste without it being reviewed or things, because clearly that puts the trust into companies to say, yes, we will be good boys, we will behave, and we will make sure that the standard that we declare is safe for the environment. So that's just not going to happen. The regulators aren't going to stick with that at all. But standards do tend to be seen as a prelude to an end of waste happening. So you basically create a standard that then shows that there is a market activity in the waste field, and then you can justify the requirement for an end of waste. So that's where we kind of are at the minute with Risers, and this is sort of like an introduction to what we're looking at and where we're going. And if we present in May, there's a possibility we might present in May, which is where we'll show where we've gone from here to May. But ultimately, what we're looking at the minute is end of waste Article 6 will never include standards, even if we get more of them. Byproducts hinder industrial symbiosis for waste because you've got this, it's got to be able to be used directly with no further processing. And then we've got this Circular Economy Act due in 2026. But no matter what we do, we need to look at end of waste and byproducts. And one of the things that we're doing is currently we're looking at the possibility. So the standard agencies, we're talking with them, and we're developing the idea of, well, maybe the roadmap that we're doing within RISE as part of it, what it will do is it will create a standard for industrial symbiosis that says, okay, if you actually want to create a standard for a resource to enable it to be used in industrial symbiosis, then this is what you must do, and this is how it actually needs to be produced. So it's a standard for the production of standards, for want of a better terminology. And that's really where we're looking at and currently investigating. And we're investigating that with standards agencies. We're looking to investigate that have a conversation with DG Environment about that, as to whether that would be a methodology and a way to go and allow things to happen without necessarily having to go through the rigor and the complicated process of which there is for end of waste. Almost bringing in, to be honest, the process that was the production for end of waste into that standard. So the standard for production of a material standard would actually
Sorry,
be
James,
what it was.
1 minute more, please.
No, that's it. That's actually my
Okay.
last sentence. So
Okay,
good.
perfect then.
Now, apologies to everybody. I've got a hard stop at 10 or 11 your time. So I might not be around to answer questions, but I'll see if there's any in the chat, and I'll try and write a written answer.
Okay, no worries. If someone asks in the chat something, I will just share with you later on by email, so we could just answer the question to the audience. Anyway, thank you, James, for your time. I know that you are very busy. I will give them the floor for our last presentation that came from Natalija, and it will be related to the practical barriers of industrial symbiosis in the regulation for state-owned and private entities. So let's move for this private institution and what happened with them. So Natalija, I think you could start sharing, yeah?
Yes, okay. Just let me know if it's full screen now.
Not yet. Now, yes, thank you so much.
Okay, perfect. Perfect, thank you. So yeah, being mindful of time, I will try to be quick and concise on the point. But actually, once coming through the topics of today's presentations, I just tweaked a bit my idea. So I will also cover, well, basically I will cover the practical barriers, but I will start with also some I guess, quite important developments regarding the circular economy strategies, which was tweaked by Peter as our first speaker. And I will have some tweaks regarding James' presentation. Hopefully you will still be able to hear them. If not, well, maybe I will catch you somewhere and outside the webinar. So yeah, basically, I guess it's quite important because well, all the developments that are currently undergoing here in Latvia, they are well, basically they are focusing on circular economy, but we are developing them further. And currently we're working on the circular economy strategy for our basically capital, which is Riga, and we have with my personal involvement also there. So we are trying to implement industrial symbiosis as one of the core elements of the circular economy, because otherwise it's always set aside and nobody actually maybe considers it in an efficient manner. So we have put together the vision, which is, well, basically a starting point for circular economy innovations that support the return of resources to the circulation and development of new technologies, infrastructure, and processes, taking, of course, into account the planetary boundaries to serve as a source of inspiration for other municipalities. Of course, behind the vision, we have to have specific targets in the strategy. So the main, well, I would say the main general target is the returning the resources back into the economic cycle and circular use of the resources, which is also then supported by a list of KPIs. The trick is there that, well, for example, we have a lot of discussions with municipality that currently there are a lot of things that are not measured, so they are like very reluctant in including them into the strategy. But well, basically, if we're not starting and if we're not stating that we have to start measuring some aspects, of course, we will never do that. So of course, this is something that we have to foster and to promote in a more stricter manner. So, and to support this this main target, we have 3 sub-targets, which are also supported by a list of sub-targets and KPIs. So the one of them is that basically regarding the society. So basically the inhabitants or residents use the infrastructure supporting the circular economy and engage in the implementation of circular economy. Another one is focusing on the municipality itself, basically how it manages its own resources. And here is the direct link with the industrial symbiosis. So and the third one, which is also has a strong connection with the symbiosis, is that the city is becoming a suitable place to grow and develop for entrepreneurs who apply the principles of the circular economy. So, and in the last 2 targets, we are emphasizing that there have to be areas dedicated to industrial symbiosis, and there has to be a certain facilitation for the entities to implement the industrial symbiosis. But, well, regarding these facilitations, well, we will see in a moment that there are a range of obstacles as well there. And actually, it's quite interesting because last year, basically in 2024, in Latvia, we have developed a circular economy index for municipalities. And this is just one of the aspects showing the smart resource management. So basically, we can see here that according to the self-evaluation of the municipalities, and also according to the vision of the inhabitants, because the index comprised of basically 2 sides, 2 parts of evaluation, both both self-assessment and both how the inhabitants see what is the municipality doing. So basically, the overall coverage of Latvia is quite deeply green, which means that the overall perception is that we're doing quite good with the resource management. Although if we go back to the statistics, well, we know that we do extract a lot of resources, but we are lacking extremely to adding value to the resources. So basically, we're mostly exporting a lot and then, well, buying already products that have been produced from our resources. So this is something that actually puts it very interesting that the perception that currently is there in place, sorry, is not, well, basically reflecting the reality. So, and while assessing the real situation with industrial symbiosis and the obstacles that are in place, we have come across the need to develop a memorandum of cooperation to promote the industrial symbiosis as an element of circular economy in Latvia, not only just somewhere in, I don't know, maybe in strategy in one word, but with real practical actions. And currently, well, it's about to be signed. So, and the signatories are definitely, well, a range of ministries, basically Ministry of Climate, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Economics, and others. A range of municipalities is also willing to be part of this memorandum, and it's very interesting because it's not like well, a nice to have thing, but this memorandum has beneath it a set of specific actions to promote industrial symbiosis, not only in order to educate and to share the knowledge on industrial symbiosis, but also to develop regulatory framework changes to boost the implementation of industrial symbiosis as, well, basically to make it a new normal, not something just how to overcome the Article 5 and Article 6 of Waste Framework Directive. Yeah, and I'll go here and then I'll just in a minute go back to some practical examples. So if we turn to practical barriers for industrial symbiosis, Actually, within the last year, I had a chance to assess the barriers both for private entities and also both for the public entities. And with respect to public entities, well, there is probably I assume that in all EU member states, we have quite a strict legislation regarding public entities, what they can do and what they cannot do. And actually, while developing the strategy for Riga municipality for circular economy, we had a lot of stakeholder meeting, including the public entities, and actually we developed the potential. We developed the topic of industrial symbiosis, and we did see that they are ready and they are actually willing. They have already found these potential cooperating points among themselves. So basically they could share the resources, be it energy, be it land plots, be it electricity and some other resources. But there are a couple of tricks there. So first of all, we have strict legislation that limits the ability for a public entity to sell for the lowest possible price. So basically they have to either auction to put some goods or resources via auction to sell it for a higher possible price, or basically they have other options, but still they cannot sell for the lowest price. On the other side, if the state-owned company wants to purchase some goods or resources, so basically they are obliged to either purchase for the lowest price possible or for most economically advantageous price, which basically ends up in the lowest price. So, and if we're speaking of potential industrial symbiosis between two state-owned companies or public companies, then we will see that actually it's not legislatively possible because of these two aspects. So one cannot sell for a lower price, other cannot buy for a higher price. So that's a bit of an absurd situation which has been identified now. And another thing that is more linked with the private sector, which does not have these two tipping points in their basically in their vision. For the private companies, it is really a lack of knowledge because they are not assuming that someone might need their byproducts or basically their waste as a primary resource. Or there is another trick. If they have found a cooperation partner, we have quite strict legislation on waste management, and we have strict waste definition. So, and actually very good potential symbioses ended up with a situation when a regulatory body comes and says basically, well, you're dealing with waste, so your cooperation partner has to have a waste management permit and fall basically under whole waste legislation, which is a bit of absurd because what we are doing, we are thinking one step before, because basically industrial symbiosis is diverting waste, potential waste from the waste stream. And so here we have put some solutions how to overcome the barriers. And I see that James has already left. Yeah, unfortunately, but actually I wanted to refer here to his presentation because we are planning, I would say, a small revolution here in Latvia because currently we are carrying out a project for development of a resource classifier for one industry. So basically, we all know that we have in Europe waste classifier, this huge list of all types of waste classified by the specific codes. So what we are trying to do is to assess one particular industry within this year and to classify the potential byproducts or residues which are occurring in this particular industry to have
Sorry,
them.
Natalija, 1 minute more, please.
Okay, yes, thank you. To have them classified and to allow thus basically to not fall out from the statistics from the, because if this waste stream is diverted and put into the industrial symbiosis stream, then what we see is that it does not fall under statistics because it will be classified, it will be with certain codes assigned, and we will be able to see the whole flow. And the most important thing is that we will be able to report for the EU the waste prevention figures at last, because, well, this is something that is lagging behind. Yeah, and of course, another activities in addition to this one is that basically, well, as I mentioned, this memorandum of understanding is raising general awareness and benefits of industrial symbiosis, and promotion of industrial symbiosis in the curricula for multidisciplinary studies is something that's also lacking, because it's not only for environmental studies, but it has to be for all, basically for cross-cutting studies to understand and to see the basic principles of circular economy and industrial symbiosis. Yes, and I will stop here. Yes, that would be all from my side currently.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your presentation, and also for giving these solutions or this light to continue working and making more real industrial symbiosis. There is a question for you. Are there any standard and business model applied in Latvia regarding industrial symbiosis, or case study that you could share?
Yes. Well, basically, we don't have any standards for industrial symbiosis. I know that there is one Interreg project currently regarding standardization of the industrial symbiosis territories, in which Latvia is involved. So I can share some information regarding that if that's of your interest. And well, yeah, we have quite a set of case studies on industrial symbiosis. So yeah, I'm ready to share them. Yeah, maybe after the webinar as well. So that's, yeah.
Perfect. What I'm going to do is to answer here in the question to share directly your email. So if he wants to contact you, he could just directly asking for you. Also, maybe that question could be applied for Peter. Do you have any kind of a standard or business model applied in your country?
Regarding the industrial symbiosis, not yet. As you see in the presentation, there are some legal aims that could elevate and have those cooperation in practice, which means less resource should become waste, and on the other hand, less primary resource should be used, which means more efficient waste management and better interaction and communication between the value chain partners would be beneficial towards this aim. One example, it's not a standard or any kind of things. It's a good example how this communication between stakeholders could be established. Regarding the construction demolition waste, there is a website which was developed by a private company who are dealing with waste management of demolition, especially demolition waste, and they developed an interactive website with a map application where you can or any partner could, after registration, would make their inputs whether they have got such kind of amount and quality of waste, construction and demolition waste, and on the other hand, anybody also could submit their request on such kind of material type. I intentionally don't say waste, but such kind of material type, because I think this, and it also leads to the question what James mentioned, what refers to waste, and when it is the border between waste and byproduct. Yeah, it means that we did these initiatives, good initiatives from the private sector as well, especially from the private sector, could lead us to the enhancement of this communication between these players, and hopefully lead us to much practical industrial symbiosis in Hungary.
Thank you so much, Peter, for your answer.
You're welcome.
We have another question, probably the last one, and I think it's more for Biljana. It's about if there is any regulatory connection between industrial symbiosis and the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive.
Yeah, I saw saw the question, and well, to tell you the truth, industrial symbiosis and packaging and packaging waste directive, in fact, have the same aim to stop the pollution from to plastic and to protect the environment. But as I can, from my point of view, I don't see direct a connection between the regulation for plastic and packaging waste with the industrial symbiosis. I mean, of course, the plastic is one of the biggest pollution of the environment, and of course, that huge amount of plastics can be used as byproduct or waste for another industry. But in my opinion, the accent is now on the stop producing plastic, and let's raise aims for plastic and packaging recycling. But no one has put the stress on let's use that extra plastic and packaging for another industry. I mean, maybe Peter or Natalia have different opinions, but I don't know.
They say no.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you, Biljana.
Okay, so I don't see more questions here in the box, so I know that we are a little bit out of time, so I would like just to thank you, Biljana, Peter, Natalia, and of course James, for the presentation of today and for being here as a speaker. I think that the four of you give a different overview, even all the topics are connected. So that has been very useful for us also to see how some national countries, EU countries are working and how they are implementing actions. So I think that even though there are some barriers to overcome, as also Natalia mentioned, we are some also action to implement and so points to continue growing and to make more real industrial symbiosis. So once again, thank you all of you for being here. And the recording of this session will be uploaded on YouTube apart from sharing with you the slides of today. So thank you to all of you. Have a nice Friday and also a nice weekend.
Thank
Bye.
you, Almudena.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.